Good
Hello,
morning.
everyone. Good
Hi.
morning. Hi, everyone. This is such a beautiful day today, and I'm so excited to have Daryl Green with us, president of Cade Advertising and original founder of Capital Media Company. And so, really excited to have you on. I have a background in advertising, so you obviously are an expert. And for those of you who aren't familiar, this is a show called CityClips. We love to cover everything in North Florida, business and tech. And I thought to have Daryl on here with us today because he has been in Tallahassee for a very long time and he is very familiar with the business community and he does a lot with digital marketing as well. So he's grown businesses successfully and does all kinds of things related to consulting work and marketing and advertising. So thank you so much, Daryl, for being on my show today.
Well, thank you for the warm introduction.
I know you're going to do a better job as we dive in. So I like to always start with how did you end up in Tallahassee and what got you into starting a business?
Sure. Well, the business part kind of comes a little bit later. I'm originally from Inglewood, Florida, and my family settled in Inglewood in 1913. So we were some of the original residents down there. And Inglewood, for those that don't know, is about halfway between Sarasota and Fort Myers on the Gulf Coast, right on the water. So I kind of grew up on the beach, and it's a very beautiful place. But outside of going to the beach, there really was not a lot to do. So when it kind of came time for college, I didn't know where I was going to go, but I knew where I wasn't going to stay. And I had always been a huge Florida State fan and ultimately chose to move to Tallahassee to go to school.
Awesome. And you majored in, didn't you get degrees in philosophy and political science? Very
Yeah,
different.
I have degrees in philosophy and political science. At one point, I thought, I was going to be a lobbyist, and then suddenly it really kind of clicked in that I wanted to be a philosophy professor, and because I really enjoyed that a lot. And we kind of got to the point where, sort of in your doctoral program for philosophy, you got to be fluent in French, German, Latin, and Greek, because you're in a lot of the original texts and things like that. And French I could deal with. I knew a little German from my father, who was in the service in Germany, and I took Latin in college. So. But the Greek part, like, there was just no way. And so I moved off of that.
And then you mentioned you also went to University of Chicago, right?
Yeah, later on, kind of another chapter later in my life, when I originally became the agency director of Compass Marketing, there was sort of a series of events where I was kind of thrust into the role that I wanted. And it was one of those that you learn what you don't know very quickly. And I knew that I needed some additional education to be able to continue in that role. So I went and did some certificate programs up there affiliated with the Booth School of Business, and did some agency management, agency financial management courses.
Wow. And I know you mentioned you have a real passion for team building. You built a great culture. I remember in our prior conversation, you built a great team culture with Compass, and then you guys did great work there. Can you talk a little bit about helping Lucky Go get off the ground?
Yeah, that was one of during my time at Compass, that was one of my favorite projects. And there's kind of a deeper conversation there that you find business that you enjoy, that you like. Those are the best clients, like things that you're personally passionate about. And I'm pretty passionate about coffee. And it was kind of happenstance that this was back when Lucky Goat was kind of in its original location, and was really the business at that time was really sort of selling and servicing coffee equipment. And then Ben opened a coffee lab to kind of refine in, you know, what the best blends were and things like that. And it was very close to Compass, and we would be in there all the time. And it was one of those that we just kind of wore him down a little bit, being in there and being passionate about the product. And around that time, their lease was coming up and they needed to move to a different space, which is when they moved to the old Taylor window and door plant. And we were able to kind of do some of the original branding, and even, you know, like I said, the big chalk menus that they had and the chalk diagrams of how all the drinks are made up. You know, that was me and Bobby on our team up on a ladder, you know, doing that by hand. So it was a lot of fun.
I remember that too. When, you know, the tasting room opened up, I heard about it through Domi. I think there was an event that they co-hosted with Lucky Goat, and that was the first time I heard about Lucky Goat. And so I think if I remember correctly, and so yeah, it was so cool to see where things have grown from there to now, and just it's pretty
fantastic. I mean, and it's one of those things where, you know, you start with a really good product and you know, market it the right way, and you know, sky's the limit.
Yeah, and then you've also done work, or you continue to help out with do work with Procter, right?
So I have actually a long history with Procter. I was with that organization for almost 20 years. Started out kind of after college. I decided I have a really strong passion for cars and the automobile, and I wanted to be kind of close to that. And I actually went and worked on the sales side for Procter, which is how I started my career with that organization, and ultimately morphed into being their e-commerce director at one point, and later the director of marketing and public relations. And Compass was a subsidiary company of Procter Holding Corporation. So they had the agency kind of over here, and I was working over here, and I always kind of loved the stuff that they did. It was really cool, and that was kind of what the spark that said, you know, I think I want to be in that business. And so I had lobbied Theo about, you know, a role in Compass for a long time, and you know, finally he acquiesced, and I took over as Compass's agency director. I presented them with a business plan of what I wanted to do, ultimately with that, and they gave me the reins, and that would have been sometime around 2009, 2010.
So did you always know, like, having the degrees that you've had with philosophy and everything, so like, did you ever think you'd end up in the agency world?
Not necessarily, no. And I have kind of a different view of education than a lot of people do. And this is one of the things that I kind of impart to my son very much. And I think people miss this point a lot, that education, and particularly, you know, secondary education, they're really teaching you how to learn. I mean, yeah, there are certain specific skill sets and knowledges that they're imparting, but the greater sort of macro part of that is they're teaching you the methodology of how to learn in there. And that's, you know, some of the best team members that I have ever had and been able to work with along the way, did not have experience in the particular field, but they had the aptitude and the willingness to learn. They could earn themselves into that position, and that to me is much more valuable than anything else. That ability.
And in our industry, you have to constantly learn. You have to be in that, and everything changes so quickly. And I'm glad you brought that up too, because like it forces us to be creative. Like we really are in the creative industry. You constantly have to think about different ways to address problems. And so now I wanted to bring up with Cade, how did you get involved with Cade Advertising?
So that again is kind of a long story. Like I mentioned, Compass was a subsidiary of Procter Holding, and sort of during the pandemic, the Proctors, there were a couple things going on. Number one, they wanted to focus more on the Subaru business, which kind of occupied the same campus that we were on, and they had the need to kind of expand from a real estate standpoint in there. Fourth generation ownership was coming in, and there was a lot of change there, and it was one of these things that's not like the other, and we really need to focus on the bread and butter. So we made the decision to sort of wrap Compass up, and at that time, I opened Capital Media Company, which serves as sort of a media acquisition company for clients, and was able to do that and still do that for them to this day with all of the media that they put out there. And at the same time, I was recruited to go work for another company that was a client of ours. It was a big international company in the finishing industry, and had worked with them for a couple of years. And I got to the point kind of where I just really wanted to work for myself. I was really passionate about growing Capital Media. And so I stepped away from that. And oddly enough, I was having lunch with a good friend of mine, Tom Druzpolsky, that owns Bow Stern, which is he and Kelly have a fantastic agency here in town. Bow Stern do amazing work. And Tom and I periodically get together, and we were together at lunch, and I was telling him what was going on with Capital Media Company. He's like, "Well, do you know Rob that owns Cade?" I said, "Well, no, I can't say that I do. I remember the three original partners at Cade, but I don't know Rob." And Rob had acquired Cade in 2017, I believe. And he said, "Well, you should really meet Rob, because he's trying to run Cade from Michigan, and that's not the easiest thing in the world." I said, "Well, Tom, I'm kind of at the stage in my life where the only person I really want to work for is myself." And he said, "You should talk to Rob, because there could be some opportunity there." So I met Rob, and we hit it off right away, and have a very similar vision for what Cade could be in there. On the Capital Media side, it's really strictly focused on media, like I said, media acquisition and media placement, which I love, but I have a real passion for design and the ability to just make something really cool, to have a product that brings a consumer all the way through that funnel and converts, the ability to help a small business grow. I just really love that, and Cade offered the opportunity to do that. So I joined back in October of 23 as president and partner at Cade.
I want to pull up, and I know in our world, it's always a good sign when you don't have to touch your website to sell yourself, because that means you're doing well. You understand. But I know you guys are in the process of like refreshing things. I want to sure we just, for people to
Well,
have.
one of the challenges too is having the time to do your own stuff, because
Yeah.
a lot of the time in the agency world, it's kind of like the cobbler's children. It's your stuff kind of gets put off to the side while you're working on other more important client work. But we are going to, in the very, very near future, look at a little bit of a brand refresh in there. And that's going to include the website in there.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And it's also, I mean, a great sign too that, heading for more direction. You guys have, or a new direction, so to speak. You're a full service agency.
We are. One of the kind of unique things that Cade has is our level of depth when it comes to web development in there. We certainly do, WordPress style sites and things like that. But we have a developer that's actually been here since the day Cade started over 30 years ago, Melissa, who is an absolute guru, and can quite literally, the combination of her and Rob and Megan, that does a lot of our digital design, can really do absolutely anything. And it's built, it's built completely customizable. Example, it's an old example, but a good example of the capability is, the Florida Chamber has that website that contains all of the sort of real-time statistics of everything
Yeah, the
going on. That
scorecard.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah,
Kay built that.
that's cool.
In there. And, we work with a lot of clients that require, on a national scale or international scale, actually, that have websites that require a lot of complex functionality. And that's something that, fortunately, we don't have to farm out any of that. That quite literally happens in the office to my left. So that's really,
Yeah,
it's a good bragging point.
those are two things I noticed that was really neat too, is that a lot of agencies outsource, but you do not. Your talent is all in-house, so you're able to control quality and have a great turnaround, and great service. So one of the questions I had for you is like, how are you keeping your customers? You have long-term loyal customers, right? And if you wanted to highlight a few, we'd love to hear about that.
Sure. We'll highlight a few, but to be very honest, that comes from lessons I learned with the Proctor organization. That organization has been around since 1910, and continuous family ownership. And they had a way of doing business that was just good business. And it started with taking care of their staff, their team, treating the internal customer first. And then that kind of empowers everybody in the organization to be able to treat the external customers in a unique way and make it an experience. And that was one of the really valuable lessons that I was able to take away from my time there. And then, the importance of surrounding yourself with a great team and making them feel genuinely appreciated in there. I would, one of the things that still sticks with me is how Martin and Thea would treat all of the employees as a whole. So you talk about someone, for example, like Martin who knows everybody in Tallahassee, by the way. And it doesn't matter if you were sort of a C-suite employee or you were a porter. If Martin was with you and met someone that he knows, he would always introduce you as, "This is my coworker, Daryl. This is my coworker." And it's a little thing, but it's important, and it sticks with you. And like I said, I believe that starts foundationally with the team that you have to make them feel valued. And that sort of percolates into every aspect of the business. Um, People that genuinely enjoy what they're doing, they're passionate about it, and your clients can feel that in there. Like you genuinely want them to go to that next level in business. So for example, I've worked with a law firm in town, Akbar Thomas, for years and years, and we've got to see that move from the Akbar law firm to now Brandy being a full partner and it being Akbar Thomas, and that continues to grow. And we're right now in the middle of a campaign that's going to roll out soon that's going to kind of go to a whole other level. So it's exciting to see. It's exciting to see things like that. Another great example, Dr. Rainey. I worked with Dr. Rainey, who's a dentist here for years, and his practice is growing. He's brought on another dentist, Dr. Montalvo, and everything going on over there is really cool right now. But then we have, like I said, we have some of our big national clients that we work with, folks like Dealer DMV, who have an absolutely amazing product that, once upon a time, if you went and bought a car, you would have to go do the tag and title work at the, stand in line at the DMV. And their product allows you to do that right when you buy the car at the dealership. Everything's handled, and that's amazing. And then clients like Social House Vodka, that's kind of a fun, what account could be more fun than a vodka client? And kind of growing a really cool brand that is growing in a really interesting way. Their pathway through growth is partnering with the NIL collectives at the different schools and making special editions. Like for FSU, there's a Battle's End edition that they sell, but they want to kind of they want to include everybody in there. So not only is there that, there's Fang Exchange for FAMU too. So being able to work with them and grow has been amazing as well.
So cool. Those are all fun. I mean, it sounds like fun. And there are two things I definitely wanted to ask you before we wrap up. And we had met through our sons being on the same cross country and track team, being at Lincoln and everything. So, and then you told me your story of adopting your son, and you were open to talking about that whole experience. And so I just thought it was really fascinating, just knowing that about you. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, and that's, that's the most important thing I will ever do. Aiden is absolutely the best thing in my life. A couple of years ago, I was very focused in career. I've always been that way, very focused in career. And I had the opportunity in 2018. It was one of those that I had accrued so many vacation days that they were like, you have to go, like you have to use this or you're going to lose it. And so I made the decision, and I'd also bulked up a bunch of Amex points. And so I decided kind of on a whim that I was going to go to Europe and live in Paris for about 2 months, take classes at Cordon Bleu, and then get on the train, go to Nice, go to Monaco, go to Barcelona. And I can remember I was in Monaco, and I had not planned that well because it was the prince's birthday. And evidently during the prince's birthday, everything is just closed for the day. And so I was just kind of walking around Monaco with just my unencumbered thoughts. And, I sat down and it was kind of overlooking the little harbor there. And I was just like, adopting a child was something that I always I said I always wanted to do that. No matter what, I always wanted to do that. And I was sitting there and I was thinking about, how much more fun this would be with a child to share that with. And kind of realized that if I did not do something now, that it was never going to happen. And I actually took a picture of the harbor there. And so I went back home and, I was going to make this happen. And that's about the time that my father got really sick. And he started getting sick around July of that year, and he ultimately passed in October. And it had a pretty strong impact on me, and I was just kind of in a fog. And one day I went into work, and the power had gone out or something. And when I got back, I actually made, to keep myself accountable, I had taken the picture and made it my screensaver of Monaco. And I actually still have that. So it's a big panoramic picture. And the power had gone out, and I was sitting there cursing. And finally, the screen comes back on, and it's the picture of Monaco. And I was like, okay, now. And I literally got up with my phone, walked out the back door, and called Children's Home Society. And they started the process. I went through all the classes, and that's about the time COVID really started. And it was an extremely difficult process. I learned just how damaged the adoption foster care system is in the United States. It's a mess. It's really, really bad. And it was one of those that I was almost to the point where it was like, I just can't do this anymore. And literally got a call that said, you've been matched with this child in South Carolina. When can you start doing visits? And okay. So, I packed up and went to Myrtle Beach, and we went to this park, and I'd set up with his social worker a time to meet him. And, I'm sitting there waiting, and the car pulls up, and Margaret, who was the social worker, gets out, and this little 12-year-old boy in a red hoodie comes walking around, all his little freckles and stuff like that. And the first thing he said to me was, thank you for giving me a chance. I didn't think this would ever happen. And I'm sitting here trying not to lose it, and I'm like, well, I told them I didn't want to have to change diapers, and they said you were potty trained, so we should be good. And that was kind of the beginning of our adventure. And like I said, how far he's come is amazing. He was, this is a kid that had missed years of school, and yesterday we're in the car, and he's talking to me about honors classes for next year. Like, he's going to do some honors classes. He's doing cross country with your son, Noah, and he's doing MMA and jiu-jitsu and boxing. So he's a very active kiddo. But yeah,
So talented.
It's definitely the most important thing I'll ever do.
Yeah, anyone who goes through that process, I just really respect and appreciate. So yeah, there's so many kids in the foster care system, and
it really is. And like I said, it's tragic. What happens in there, the way these kids are sedated, the way the inefficiencies. At some point, I will do something, whether it be write an article, write a book, or something about that. But it's one of those that I've got to get a little bit less angry about it, and that's going to take a while, because it really is tragic, and there does not seem to be a lot of focus on fixing that.
Yeah, and there's amazing kids that go through, and you know, shout out to a friend of mine, Victoria Zepp. She has an amazing story of surviving that
Yeah.
hospice stuff, and so it just yeah, there definitely needs to be more light shed on this whole thing, and but and then to bring it back to what we had started about related to growing a business, because I know you were also talking about you were open to answering my question. I wanted to ask you, so why did you choose to continue to stay here in Tallahassee and grow a business and help others grow their businesses? You obviously have a great culture of work-life balance, and then you're managing you know, raising a kid, a foster kid, and now adopting. And so, how have you managed to do that here?
Well, Tallahassee, you know, at the time when I was in school, I was not. I was thinking more, you know, destined for Chicago, destined for Atlanta. You know, probably the same thoughts that a lot of the kids that go to FSU have, and you're very much, when you're at FSU, you're very much in family. You're very much insulated. You're kind of in the bubble, and you don't get to see the quality of life that Tallahassee provides. And I think the big sort of first step for me in my career was joining the Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce. That was a huge step. And, you know, I talk about kind of internally as an agency, surrounding yourself with great, talented people. And sort of outside of that, you know, in that chamber is the opportunity to surround yourself with great, talented people as well, sort of on the community side. And honestly, the business that I built at Compass was very much the relationships that I made there with the chamber, and the things that I participated in. So I do feel very strongly about that. And one of the things about Tallahassee is sort of everybody wants to kind of help everybody out. Everybody wants to help succeed. You look at the different agencies in here. You know, I have wonderful friends at almost all of the agencies here in town, and it's never a, you know, sort of a competitive sort of thing. It's everybody wants to kind of lift each other up, because there's plenty of work for everybody in there. And I think that's one of the things unique to Tallahassee. And like I said, it's a great quality of life. This is a great place to raise my son. And you know, plenty of opportunity.
Yeah. So, would you like to conclude with anything you would leave as advice, maybe
Yeah.
to the Tallahassee community and leadership on continuing to pretty much share that message of why Tallahassee, North Florida is a great place to
Right.
live?
And it's, you know, what I would share is sort of just that. It's position yourself in a way that you're making these relationships with people, um, you know, kind of outside your circle, people in the business community and so forth, because you really don't know what that is going to lead to, you know. And the tangible example would be, you know, my friendship with Tom about Stern, you know, that I met years ago. And if I had not had that relationship, you know, to the point where we're going and having lunch, and you know, he's like, hey, do you know Robert Cade? I would not be here. You know, I would be somebody. So you don't know, you really don't know who you might meet, what opportunities might catalyze from the things you do by kind of getting out there. And that's what I would say is take those opportunities. And the other thing I would say is always learn, always do something that's helping you grow. You mentioned that earlier, the nature of what we do in the advertising and marketing field is extremely dynamic. There's social media, for example, you can basically forget your job every week because there's some new way to do it. And now with all the AI and things like that kind of penetrating in, there's a very high learning curve. So always take that time to kind of grow and surround yourself with people that are like-minded like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Daryl. This was so good.
Thank you.
Thanks for talking about your story. And if
Absolutely.
there's anything we can do to help, obviously you don't need help, but
I need all the help I can get. Trust me.
Well, like when your book is out, let us know.
I'll do that.
And we'll continue to follow what you're doing with all those great brands that you mentioned. Really excited to see where things go. And thank you so much again. And just sit tight and we'll see you on the other side.
All right. Thank you for having me.
All right, guys. We'll see you guys next time later. If you would love to hop on my show and be a guest, we'd love to see you.